students, welcome to part 2 of this video series explaining how to navigate the course and particularly how to get started. So when you log into Blackboard, it's going to default to the Start Here page. Each week, after this week, I will be posting a copy of the notes and any other materials that we look at in class here. However, you're going to be given hard copies of them in class. But this week, it's particularly important that you navigate to the learning session area because it tells you exactly what my expectations are for week 1. Now, if you go to course information, this is where you can download a copy of the course information sheet. I will give you a hard copy of that next week. Really, the most significant portions were the overall description of the course, which we looked at in the previous video, and in addition, the breakdown of your grade. But you can go ahead and print a copy of it here. You can also look at the tentative schedule. Now, this is subject to change, but I do want to open it and quickly look at it with you just so you can get a little bit of an idea of what we're doing in the class. It will also help you to pace yourself throughout the class. So let me enable some editing. So today or this week, we're doing the online course overview. Next week, we will look at, now you'll notice that I abbreviate and I say ETA, lecture, and PowerPoint. And the topic we'll be looking at is algebra tiles, pattern blocks, and Cuisenaire rods. And then we will review the elements for the math unit that you looked at in the course information sheet we discussed briefly, but I don't want you to worry about it now, so that's why we'll look at it next week. What does ETA mean? That's the name of the company that produced your manipulatives. I suppose I didn't even need to put it there, but when you see it, just think, oh, she's talking about the backpack and the manipulatives. So anytime you see ETA, bring your backpack with you. As I mentioned in the previous video, you'll see that we're looking at those manipulatives up through, I believe it goes until week 6. So after week 6, you don't have to bring the backpack anymore. But you'll also notice throughout there, I have another abbreviation, PTA. The PTA is simply the acronym for Principles to Action. If you have this book, bring it, highlight throughout it. It's a great quick read, super relevant and hands-on and applicable to what you're going to be doing in the classroom from here on out. Also, this right here, this would be a wonderful resource to use in your math unit, which we will talk about later, for a rationale for why you're choosing some of the different methods and techniques. The research in there is really strong and it's based on best practices. So I will make copies of whatever we're going to go over though in here because I only made that text suggested. So I will make copies. I will give them to you the week before, and then whenever it says, like during week 3, that we're going to discuss establishing goals to focus learning and implementing tasks that promote reasoning and problem solving, you will have been given that reading material in week 2. That way you can read it and be ready. I've mentioned in the previous video that the outside reading in this class is minimal because we don't start looking at crossing the river with dogs until the second half of the term. And I don't collect homework, though I expect you to do it at home. But what outside reading you will be doing will be short readings from Principles to Action. It'll probably be about 10 pages. And then the other reading that will be occurring is your own research in the history and mathematics areas. I give you some suggested resources in the Blackboard shell, but you'll also be going out on your own and conducting research in those areas. Okay, we see that our first report on math history, which is numbers and number systems, is due in week 5. There will also be a presentation that week by one of the groups. So let's say, for instance, that Haley and Sarah decide that they want to present on numbers and number systems, they let me know right off the bat. They're the first two that get it because it's first come, first serve. The rest of you will have to write a report on numbers and number systems. Their presentation will have the same broad components because you're all going to follow the same rubric, but the other 5 do not have to do a presentation. Only Haley and Sarah have to do a presentation. What am I looking for in terms of length? 10 minutes, no more than 15. So if you have 5 slides, it's 2 minutes per slide. If you have 7, it's a little less. You get the drift. But I don't want it to take up too much time. You will upload those essays into Blackboard. I have them have a little spot for it during the week at which they are due, and the PowerPoint presentation will also be uploaded there. I mentioned that you can work on these collaboratively. However, even though 2 people will perhaps work together and have the same exact report, I would like you each to upload a copy of it. That way I have something there to provide feedback to each individual. Okay, you'll notice that I have the math unit ideas due during the 6th week. Again, we'll talk about that so everybody feels comfortable next week. But the actual math unit is not going to be due until down here at week 13. Now, our class would fall on Holy Thursday, and we're not having class that day. However, I would just expect the unit to be turned in. We'll have 2 weeks then where we won't have anything, and you will have taken a test this week before, have just a few problems to complete independently. So you'll have a big gap of time there, but the good news is you'll be able to get that unit done. You'll come back in, we'll have our final report on trigonometry due. Nobody's presenting then, simply because with the Easter holiday then, it just is too much to fit in. We complete a final lecture on chapter 12 of the book, and we review for our final test. But you'll notice that those reports are spaced out about every 3 weeks, and the tests are the same way, and then they alternate. And then that math unit is introduced very early on, and then you have plenty of time to compile all the components for it. So that's the tentative schedule. It is subject to change, though I will make sure I let you know if I change anything at all. So let's go back into our Blackboard shell. Okay, so we're going to navigate to learning sessions. All that's showing up right now is week 1, just because I want to make sure I have everything solid for the forthcoming weeks. And when I do, I'm just going to release them because here's my hunch, or here's what I would do. And I foresee some of you doing that. You have this whole first week where you're only going to be reading 2 very short articles and be preparing for a little discussion next week. What are you going to do with all your free time? You should probably start writing those math history reports so that you can just knock them out. So if you get one done this week, guess what? You could upload it as soon as I release those weeks. They only need to be 3 to 4 pages long, double space. And if you're working with somebody, that's only about 1.5 pages of writing for each person. I'm not trying to say that, hey, these don't matter much and they should be of very little quality. But what I am saying is you're not doing this in-depth review of literature for a very long paper. It's short. I want it to be relevant and meet the specifications of the rubric. But again, it's not an in-depth research paper. So I think you could knock some of those out, particularly during the beginning when our activities are just starting to get rolling. This week, I want you to have first watched those 2 videos. And then after you've watched them both, I want you to navigate to the discussion board to ask any questions about elements that are confusing, number 1, and then to choose the one history of math topic you want to present on. Remember that you can only pick one, and this will either occur in pairs or as a trio. We will navigate over there in a second so you can look at that. But you'll see right in this spot right here, this is where the videos will lie. They're not there right now because I'm making them. This is where you will click to go and ask any questions about the course, the grade breakdown, any components that I did not explain well or that are still unclear. You will click on this. You'll notice up in the checklist, it says to Also ask any questions that you have about the history of math presentations and to select the one topic you would like to present on. Remember, there's only one presentation for each topic, so if there's one you really like, you better let me know right away. But for the first one, there can be 3 people that complete that presentation. That means less work for who the 3 volunteers are. Then 2 for discrete math, then 2 for data analysis, probability, and statistics. But to let me know, you'll click on this and you'll create a thread in which you just say, hey, Professor Ruck, I want data analysis, probability, and statistics. I mentioned that there are a lot of e-resources that come with purchase of that backpack, and here they are. There's the Start with Manipulatives guide, at least download, perhaps print it. Then there are links that will take you to the Hand to Mind website and give you access to a slew of wonderful worksheets. These will be extremely useful when you are creating your math unit because I expect one of your lessons to include physical and concrete manipulatives. And then what's interesting, among all of those different lessons that were retrievable in the website that I went over in your first video, there's an entire book that they give you for free called Hands-on Standards Math. It's about 250 pages that does the entire 6th grade curriculum using manipulatives. Download this because if you end up teaching 6th grade, this is going to be a huge resource for you. I'm going to go back. I just want you to look at those. This is where you click to get all of those downloadable lessons. That takes you back to that website that we looked at in the other video. I'll click on it now just so you can see it. Here you go. And what I would particularly recommend that you download are all of the Common Core digital lessons. You could also download all the non-Common Core ones too. They're still extremely valuable. Do not download these virtual manipulatives because you can't use them because the software is not provided. Okay, back over here. You're asked to read 2 different articles about why we teach with manipulatives. One is provided here. The other one, you need to go to my office and get it out of the box. Sometime before our second class so that you're ready to come in to have a conversation about them. Remember, participation is 8% of your grade, and that's all going to be based on conversations with the short articles that you read. Then I would like you to start thinking about those history of math reports and or presentations. I give you some initial sources and I will keep adding to these, but they will navigate out to some different articles about the history of these different topics. Every single one of these history rubrics looks the same except the topic is different, and you can use the left-sided headings as headings for your paper. So you're going to give a historical overview of the importance of trigonometry, for instance. So you provide a thorough overview of the importance of trigonometry in history and in today's world. You identify within there 3 or more mathematicians who've made contributions. And you elaborate on the contributions from diverse cultures and their impact. When I say diverse cultures, that means more than just Europe. So look at least 2 continents. And then some implications for teaching. How can you incorporate the history of trig into the 4th through 12th math classroom in an engaging student-centered way? If you choose just to do it in a 5th grade classroom, great. Just explain it so that it's engaging and student-centered. I'm not looking for all 4th through 12th, just one way that you could do it. Basically, if I said 3 pages, then you're looking at the historical overview maybe being a page, mathematical contributions a page, mathematicians' contributions a page. From diverse cultures, perhaps that's like 3/4 of a page. Implications for teachings, another 3/4 of a page. That takes you to 3.5. Maybe some of those are a little shorter, maybe a little longer, so you extend it to 4, but they don't need to be longer than 4 pages. Make sure what you do write, that it's substantial and relevant. But remember, I'm looking for a broad overview here. The rest of the portions are just about your writing techniques in terms of math terminology, punctuation, grammar, the bibliographic references. You just need 3. per report that you write. However, there's going to be one time that you do a presentation, and I just want to make sure that your overall punctuation, grammar, and sentence structure is good inside that PowerPoint presentation. So that is how that will be graded. But that is everything with respect to these math history